All right, everybody, welcome to a deep dive into some Nietzsche. We're going
Yeah.
beyond good and evil today, and we've got excerpts from the book itself to help us along,
Oh, yeah,
including even the translator's preface,
that's right.
which I think is going to be really interesting for this one because it's almost like we've got a cheat sheet to understanding some of Nietzsche's core arguments,
Yeah.
which are many.
Yeah, Nietzsche's ideas are notoriously hard to pin down.
Yeah, and provocative, right?
He's definitely a challenging thinker.
Yeah, he doesn't pull any punches.
That's true.
So in Beyond Good and Evil, I mean, he's really laying it all out there as far as his mature philosophy.
Yeah, this is like late stage Nietzsche.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is him really trying to clarify and present his worldview.
Yeah, what's the one thing you wish you had known before you first read this book?
Honestly, just read the whole thing.
Okay.
The translator's preface says it too.
Right.
A lot of people just want to, grab a Nietzsche quote here, a Nietzsche quote there, and
Yeah.
throw them around. But to really understand him, you've got to engage with the whole flow of his argument.
So you can't just pull out the sound bites.
Not really.
You have to see how it all fits together.
It's all connected.
Yeah, and the translator's preface also warns us against philosophical dogmatizing.
Right. He's very suspicious of anyone claiming to have the absolute truth.
So right out the gate, he's like, watch out for people who sound too certain.
Yeah, he wants us to question everything.
Even the stuff that sounds really smart.
Especially that stuff.
Okay, I'm game.
Good.
Now, one of the big things that Nietzsche is really known for is his critique of traditional morality, especially Christian morality.
He definitely goes after it.
He does not hold back.
Not at all. He argues that traditional moral systems are like an inversion of the natural order of values.
Okay, whoa, hold on.
Yeah,
That's a big claim.
it is.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, think about the concept of good and evil.
Okay.
Most people see them as like absolutes.
Black and white.
Right, but Nietzsche says they're not. They're human inventions, and they oversimplify our actions. He would say, why is someone generous?
Okay.
Is it always pure good, or could it be pride or a desire to show off?
Oh, so you're saying don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, there might be a lot going on beneath the surface.
There could be all sorts of motivations we don't even realize.
Right, and to drive this point home, he compares his fight against traditional morality to fighting against Plato.
Whoa.
Yeah, he sees it as a monumental struggle, like he's going up against thousands of years of thought.
He's taking on Plato.
That's right, he calls it going against the Christian ecclesiastical pressure of millennia.
Okay, he is not messing around.
He's serious.
So, okay, if we're not chasing after this traditional idea of good, then what is it that drives us according to Nietzsche?
This is where the will to power comes in.
Ah, the famous will to power.
Yep. He saw it as the fundamental energy behind pretty much everything we do.
Okay, now when I hear will to power, I'll be honest, it sounds a bit like, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Like something a supervillain would say.
I get that it's definitely a provocative term, but for Nietzsche, it wasn't just about dominating others.
Okay.
It was about this basic urge we all have to grow and to create and to overcome obstacles.
So it's not about just like being a dictator.
No.
Okay, help me out here.
Okay.
How would this will to power play out in like everyday life?
Think about an athlete training for the Olympics.
Okay.
Are they just trying to beat everyone else?
Yeah.
Or is there something deeper there, like a desire to test their own limits to see how far they can push their body and mind?
So even things like self-improvement or learning a new skill, those could all be driven by the will to power.
Absolutely. It's that inherent drive to become more, to expand our abilities and knowledge.
Even us having this conversation.
Yes. Even this is will to power at work.
Digging into Nietzsche.
That's right.
I never thought of it like that.
It's a powerful idea.
It is okay, but if we're all driven by this will to power, what about truth? Why do we seem to prefer it over lies? Or even like blissful ignorance?
That's a great question.
Where does that fit in?
And the translator of Beyond Good and Evil actually points this out early on.
Okay.
The value of truth is a major theme for Nietzsche.
Uh-huh.
And he calls it a riddle as perplexing as the Sphinx.
All right, so we've got morality flipped on its head, the will to power driving us forward, and now we're questioning why we even care about truth.
It's a wild ride.
Nietzsche's really taking us for a ride here.
Please buckle up.
I am buckled up. I am ready.
Good. It's not all doom and gloom, though, with Nietzsche.
No.
He's not just tearing things down. He has this vision of, like, what could come after, after we ditch the old systems. And that's where this idea of the free spirit comes in.
Yeah, the free spirit is such a cool idea.
Right.
This person who just questions everything and thinks for themselves is very romantic in a way.
It is. It's very appealing.
Yeah, it makes me think of that line from Beyond Good and Evil. Books for all the world are always foul-smelling books. The smell of small people clings to them.
Oh, that's a great one.
It's such a vivid image.
It really captures that sense of like the free spirit standing apart from the crowd.
Yeah, almost like being above the herd mentality that Nietzsche talks about.
Exactly.
So being a free spirit isn't just about saying no to tradition, right?
Right.
It's about cultivating a whole new mindset.
Yeah, you've got to approach the world with an open mind, but not be naive about it.
Right.
It's a tricky balance.
It is, and for Nietzsche, these free spirits are kind of like the stepping stones to the new philosophers.
That's right. The ones who can really go beyond good and evil.
Okay, I have to ask, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Beyond good and evil. It sounds kind of scary, like you're going to turn into a villain.
It does have that ring to it, doesn't it?
It does.
But Nietzsche's not saying we should all just become criminals or something. It's not about rejecting morality entirely. It's more like, imagine you've been wearing these glasses your whole life that make everything look black and white.
Okay.
And then somebody hands you a new pair and suddenly you see all these shades of gray you never even knew existed. That's what going beyond good and evil is like.
You're seeing the world and yourself with more nuance.
Exactly.
Just depth.
It's about getting rid of those simplistic judgments.
So these new philosophers, how would they actually live differently?
Well, Nietzsche thought they'd be more focused on the unintentional side of our actions, like what's really motivating us beneath the surface. They wouldn't be fooled by appearances or easy labels.
So basically like human lie detectors.
Kinda.
Able to see through all the BS and get to the core of why people do what they do.
Yeah, they'd be driven by a deeper understanding of psychology and the will to power.
Wow. Okay, so we can't really talk about Nietzsche without mentioning his views on religion.
But Christianity.
Oh yeah, Christianity. He's got some thought.
He definitely has some strong opinions.
He doesn't mince words. He calls it a life-denying force.
Right.
He says it requires us to sacrifice all freedom, all pride, all self-confidence of the spirit.
Strong words.
Oh, pretty harsh.
It is. But remember, for Nietzsche, that will to power is all about embracing life.
Yeah.
It's about growth and creation. And he saw Christianity with its emphasis on humility in the afterlife as kind of saying that this life doesn't really matter that much.
So it's like Christianity is encouraging people to focus on a reward in heaven instead of embracing the messy, challenging reality of being alive right now.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
And this leads us to Nietzsche's most infamous idea, the death of God.
All right, so death of God. Everyone throws that phrase around, but what do you actually mean by it?
It wasn't just about people going to church less or anything like that. It was much deeper than that. It's the idea that we've lost that big cosmic source of meaning. Like in the past, God was the answer to everything, Why we're here, what's right and wrong, what happens after we die, but what happens when that framework collapses.
It's kind of terrifying when you think about it.
It is. It's that feeling of emptiness.
Yeah, just this void.
And that's exactly what Nietzsche wants us to grapple with.
Okay.
The fact that we can't just rely on those old answers anymore.
So where do we even begin to look for new sources of meaning?
Right.
If we're ditching traditional morality and questioning religion, what's the alternative?
Right. It's a huge question.
Does Nietzsche give us any guidance at all?
He does, in a way. Remember how he critiqued good and evil as being too simplistic?
Yeah.
He applies that same thinking to entire moral systems. He contrasts what he calls master morality with slave morality.
Right, two different types of morality.
Right, and it's within this framework that he introduces the concept of the noble soul.
Okay, so the noble soul fits into one of these.
That's right.
Break it down for me.
So picture slave morality as being based on resentment and fear. It's like a leveling down where the weak try to drag the strong down to their level.
So kind of like a misery loves company situation.
Exactly. It's a morality of don't stand out, don't be too powerful, blend in with the crowd.
Don't make waves.
Right. On the other hand, you've got master morality, which embraces strength, creativity, a sense of pride.
Okay.
It's not about being cruel, but about having that confidence to lead and to create, to make your mark on the world.
So it's less about pulling others down and more about striving upwards yourself.
Exactly. And that's where the noble soul comes in. They embody this master morality.
Okay.
They're ambitious, driven by a love of beauty and excellence.
Uh-huh.
They want to achieve great things, not for fame or approval, but because it's in their nature.
It reminds me of that line where Nietzsche compares this Chinese proverb that says, make your heart small,
Yeah.
to this aristocratic ideal of expansiveness.
Yeah.
Like two totally different approaches to life.
It's a perfect example. One is all about shrinking back, playing it safe, while the other is about embracing your full potential, even if it makes you stand out.
And that's what Nietzsche admired.
He saw these noble souls as the engines of progress, the ones who push humanity forward.
It is a powerful idea, but it also makes me wonder, is this kind of greatness, this noble soul stuff, even possible in our world today?
Yeah.
I mean, we're so focused on equality and fairness. Does that leave any room for the kind of ambition Nietzsche's talking about?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
And it's one that Nietzsche himself grappled with. He seemed to think that these noble souls were becoming rarer in modern society, maybe even endangered.
Do you think he was right? Are we losing that drive for greatness?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think there's something to be said for Nietzsche's critique.
Okay.
He worried about that herd mentality, that pressure to conform and fit in,
Right.
and how that could stifle individual ambition and the pursuit of excellence.
I can see what he means. It's like everyone's supposed to be average, and anyone who stands out, anyone who dares to be truly great is seen as arrogant or dangerous.
Exactly, and that's something Nietzsche was really concerned about.
Mm.
He worried about what that would mean for the future of culture, for our ability to create and innovate.
Yeah.
Like, can we still have great art, great music, great philosophy if everyone's afraid to stand out?
So is that his final word then? Are we all doomed to mediocrity?
I wouldn't say doomed. Remember, Nietzsche was all about challenging us, provoking us to think differently.
Okay.
His warnings about the herd mentality and the decline of the noble soul, they're not predictions, they're challenges.
Okay.
It's like he's saying, wake up, don't settle for being average, don't let the world define yourself.
I like that it's a call to action.
It is.
But it still leaves me wondering if we're not supposed to rely on these traditional ideas of good and evil, if God is dead. How do we even begin to define ourselves? What values should we strive for? I mean, it feels like he throws out the old map, but he doesn't give us a new one to replace it.
Right.
So how do we actually navigate this world beyond good and evil? Does he give us any clues?
He does, but they're not always easy to find. You know,
Right.
Nietzsche really wants you to do the work yourself, to think for yourself. But remember that idea of the noble soul we were talking about.
Those ambitious, creative types who aren't afraid to stand out.
Exactly. He saw those individuals as key to creating new values.
Okay. But if they're not following the old rules, how do they even know what to strive for?
Well, for Nietzsche, it's partly about tapping into that primal will to power.
Okay.
But not in a destructive way, you know?
Right.
He talks about how every time humanity has taken a step forward, every time we've become a little bit better, it's because of those individuals who embrace their own potential.
Okay.
They weren't satisfied with the status quo. They wanted to create something new, something beautiful, something strong.
So it's not just about personal ambition. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible for everyone.
Exactly. He even uses the word breeding when talking about how these exceptional individuals emerge.
Breeding.
Now, before you get too creeped out,
Okay.
he's not talking about some kind of eugenics program or anything.
Right.
It's more like, imagine cultivating a rare flower. You need the right conditions, the right soil, the right amount of sunlight for it to blossom. That's how he saw the role of culture and society in fostering these noble souls.
So having the courage to be exceptional isn't enough.
Yeah.
You also need a society that allows that kind of exceptionality to flourish.
Right.
Do you think that's something we're missing today?
That's a great question, and I think it's one that Nietzsche would be asking us right now. He was very critical of what he saw as the leveling effect of democracy.
Okay.
That tendency to prioritize the average over the excellent.
But everyone gets a trophy just for participating, regardless of whether they actually try their best.
Exactly.
So is he saying competition is inherently good then?
Not necessarily. It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
He's not advocating for a cutthroat dog-eat-dog world, you know?
Right.
Remember, for Nietzsche, compassion and empathy were part of slave morality, the system he wanted to move beyond.
Yeah.
But he also saw a danger in overemphasizing those qualities to the point where they stifle ambition and the pursuit of excellence.
So it's about finding that balance,
Exactly.
encouraging individual growth, and striving while still acknowledging the need for compassion and fairness.
Right, and that's not an easy balance to strike. It's something we as individuals and as a society need to constantly grapple with.
It really makes you wonder, if Nietzsche were alive today, what would he think? Would he see any glimmers of hope, any signs that noble souls are still out there pushing those boundaries?
I think he'd probably have a lot of criticisms just like he did in his own time.
Yeah.
But I also think he'd be energized by the sheer complexity of modern life. The internet, for example, has created this incredible space for individuals to connect and create, to share their ideas with the world.
That's true. You've got people building businesses, making art challenging conventional thinking, all outside the traditional structures.
Exactly.
Maybe that's where the new philosophers are emerging in those unexpected corners of the world.
Maybe they are, and maybe that's the biggest takeaway from Beyond Good and Evil.
Okay.
It's not about finding all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. It's about questioning everything, even your own values, and then having the courage to create something new, something that reflects the best of who you are.
It's a challenge, for sure,
It is.
but also incredibly exciting.
Absolutely.
Like Nietzsche saying, the world is your canvas now. Go paint your masterpiece.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe along the way you'll become one of those noble souls who helps to shape the future.
Well, that's a thought-provoking note to end on. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of Beyond Good and Evil. But hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
Definitely.
And maybe even inspired you to pick up the book and explore these ideas for yourself.
Absolutely. Nietzsche is one of those thinkers who stays with you long after you've finished reading him. And who knows, maybe he'll even challenge you to create your own philosophy, your own Beyond Good and Evil.
Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. And until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep pushing those boundaries.